Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in, just a couple of minutes. Looks like about 3 minutes, and we'll get started. Robert, I got you as a panelist. Robert, I'm going to unmute you, and then you can mute and unmute anytime you want.
Got it.
You can hear me okay, I assume?
Perfectly.
All right. Let me turn my volume up a little bit, and then we'll go from there. All right. Jerry, I'm going to do the same for you so that you'll be able to talk. So just you can mute and unmute yourself.
Sounds good, Bob. Thanks, bud.
Okay. All right, let's share the screen and get that up there, and we'll be all set to go. All right. Paul, if you hear birds outside, it's not me. So, also, Paul, so can you monitor again today the like the chat box and participants? Let me unmute you. So I've got you unmuted. You can just mute and unmute yourself when you're ready to go. Josh, same for you. There we go.
Hey, let me exit and rejoin as a panelist then.
Okay.
Unless you can right click and turn me into a panelist.
Let's see. Promote to panelist. I can. There you go. All right, perfect. Let's get folks, if you could just do me a quick favor, just either punch in the chat bar or raise your hand. Let me know that you can hear us okay. Bill Kasprick, how you doing? Just see what other coaches we got on here that I need to unmute. And then we'll get started. All right, so I'm going to close down all my boxes, Paul, and I'm going to just let you kind of monitor from there, okay?
Sounds good.
And like if you see Joseph come in, just unmute him. We're going to have them jump in, so perfect. All right, so let me get rid of all of my stuff here. Well, welcome everybody. I appreciate you being here. And Larry, if you could do him too. Robert's really old. If you could just unmute Larry too as we go through, we're going to talk to them. So let's get started. So first of all, welcome folks. Appreciate you being here. What we're going to talk about today is a topic that, well, over the next 6 to 9 months, I'm going to admit, I personally believe we're going to see a pretty big influx in REO properties coming. So I think it's very timely that we do this class. So what I want to focus on for everybody is just understanding that for us, REO is just part of another set of listings, right? So for us and what we teach our team is to always focus on listings, because the salesperson that controls listing inventory generates the most amount of income, right? Look at the top 100 real estate agents across the United States. You don't see any of them as buyer's agents, right? You see them as listing agents. So what we work with our group on is specializing in the listing arena. And REO to us is just one of the 8 processes, or one of the 8 places that we go to locate listings. So this is just one of 8 strategies that we use for listings. And what we wanted to do today was really walk through this class, talk about what the REO business is really like, talk to you a little bit about how we may be able to help you. But what I want you to do is relax, put your checkbook away. We're not selling you anything today, okay? So now if you feel inclined to send me money, I'll send you an email. But at the end of the day, we're not here to sell anybody on anything. We're here to talk about the REO business. We're going to talk about what is entailed in that. And if you have any interest in talking to us afterwards about how we can help you and how our coaches can work with you, then feel free to reach out. So what we're going to cover today is the REO market viable today, right? Then who's the ideal REO agent? Doesn't mean you can't become the ideal, but you should know what it looks like, right? Then how in the heck do you get started? Like, where do you go to learn all this stuff? and then why asset managers hire you instead of us. And so what I put in there is, what is your USP? What's your unique selling proposition? Because, well, the title of this webinar is how to win listings, right? And so what you need to understand is that you're in competition with other agents that may or may not have a lot more experience than you. So you're going to have to be able to identify for asset managers why you're different, right? So we're going to talk about that. And then where do you find the asset managers? And then how you handle the REO expenses and cash flow. And then finally, we're going to give you a couple choices. There's a fast way to learn this, or well, there's a slow, painful way that could cost thousands of dollars. We'll let you decide which way is best for you. But what I am here to tell you is that the REO market, many of our coaches are on here right now. And I can just tell you guys, they've made millions and millions of dollars in REO. It's a great market to be in, but there's pitfalls to it. And we're going to go through and give you the honest assessment of what the REO business is, educate you on all of that. And then if you think this is something that you'd want to break into and you'd want to participate with us, then we'll give you the opportunity to do that. Fair enough? So do me a favor. We're going to be on the call for about an hour today. So just, close the door, turn off the email, the text, the phones, all that. And invest 60 minutes to figure out how to do this, because, well, 9 months from now, if REO is swarming, it might be a little bit too late to jump into that. So let's learn what we need to do today and then give you the time to start building for that momentum. Fair enough? So my name is Bob Mangold. I've been doing this for 28 years as a lender. I started as a lender, then 23 years as a top producing realtor. I developed multi-million-dollar per year systems, not multi-million production, multi-million in GCI, to generate leads and convert them speaking at a monthly seminar. Didn't even answer the phone. We invited to seminars. I owned my own brokerage for 9 years. I built the fastest growing exit realty franchise in their history. Still to this day, nobody's had a bigger brokerage faster than I did. And what I do now is I coach agents to build their personal net worth by taking more listings and then building buyer teams to handle the enormous amount of leads they generate, and then create referral fee payments in excess of 100 every month. This month, as we sit here right now, I have 198 referral fees being paid. And so I show you how to do that. So we're going to touch on all that today. Some of these things, if you wish, we'll invite you to some other classes where we'll go through those in more detail. But my challenge for you today is to keep an open mind. And unless you have vast amounts of experience, be coachable. And so REO is a little bit different animal than regular real estate. Not good or bad, just different, right? No different than if you worked with probate attorneys or divorce attorneys, just different. But be coachable in being able to learn and what you should do, right? So the ideal REO agent, I said this is ideal. This isn't, hey, this is what you have to be to break into it, but is 5 years in real estate, 3 years with REO experience. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily listing. We have a lot of agents who come in, they'll handle and just start taking care of all the paperwork that's involved in that. So they learn the process, right? So almost, if you will, an apprenticeship. It's best if you're a successful listing agent already, and it's critical that you have an effective marketing system. And we'll talk about marketing as we go through. It also helps to speak REO, if you will, right? There's lots of acronyms in REO, and that you do need financial resources to be able to do it. And then you've got great skills at implementing and following systems. So that would be the ideal. Now, you can train yourself to get there, but that would be the ideal, right? So is there an opportunity in REO right now? Well, here's what I would tell you. I don't see any way that REO inventory is not coming on, on the rise. Listen, there's REO out there now. Yeah, I would say relatively normal market at this moment. But what's coming in the 6 to 9 months is people are doing forbearances on their loans, and then they find out, oh my God, I've got this balloon payment at the end of 3 or 6 months. You're going to see that. I believe the investor market, we're going to see some of that. Some of the people that have Airbnb right now, that's what they bought the properties for. You're going to see problems in that. So my opinion is, and Larry, I know you're on the call. Larry has his ground. Larry's one of our coaches. He works with a lot of the major hedge funds in the United States. What's your opinion on REO inventory in the next, say, 6, 9 months, Larry? I think we have you unmuted. Let me find you. All right, Larry, I just unmuted you.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. So, I've been reaching out to a lot of our contacts and stuff here. So I think this is probably more of an 18 to 24-month conversation. If you look at this, in the last 2 weeks alone, we've had over 10 million people apply for unemployment. And so my assumption is a lot of those people, they may not all be homeowners, but if they own a home, they may be exercising their forbearance agreement, which rightfully they should to help them through this trying time. So we don't know how long this is going to last, but some of the issues with the forbearance agreement is there's 3 opportunities to get out of that forbearance agreement. You can pay a lump sum of all the payments that you missed, which is going to be really hard to do. You can tack it on to the end of your loan, or you can do a loan modification, which generally requires that the borrowers be re-qualified at the end of the day. If they still don't have a job, or they don't have a job that was paying as much, that may not be a situation that they can exercise. And so forbearance, they've already said, can be 3, 6, 9, or even up to a year at this point. And that's why I'm saying this is a 18 to 24 month conversation, because we have to get through this forbearance period. We can't foreclose on properties. We can't do evictions on properties during this time, and we don't know when this is going to end. Then they are going to have a minimum of 3 months to not pay on their bills before the foreclosure process starts. So to answer your question, yes, I think it's inevitable. We've never seen anything like this. I don't know what that looks like, but I can tell you that I do see an uptick in default ratios.
So the good news for you, for anybody who's on this call that does not have massive amounts of REO experience, if Larry's accurate, which I believe he probably is, because he's never wrong, at least that's what he tells me, is that it gives you time to learn the business. And that's an advantage for you now, right? So there is REO inventory coming on the way. Make no mistake about it. Is it a tsunami or a consistent inventory? We don't know, but either way, if we have time to learn it and we're ready, that's a great news for us. What I can tell you, and I'll introduce the coaches, they made more money in bad markets than they do in good. REO servicers are actively out there recruiting agents now because they know it's coming, right? So they're looking. Assignments still exist. There's still plenty of REO property out there. And a bunch of our agents have some of those REO listings, right? But here's the thing, guys, expertise is mandatory in this. They're not looking for, rookies and things like that. So we'll talk about that more, how you go out and develop that expertise, but just know that you do have to understand the business, right? So foreclosure activity in January of this year, that's the most recent numbers we have, is up 13%. It's a second consecutive month-over-month increase, which hasn't happened in about 8 years. There were 60,085 U.S. properties with foreclosure filings, up 13% from December 19 and up 7% from a year ago. So it's there. It's already starting to tick up a little bit. We believe that it was already starting to happen. The coronavirus thing certainly elevated that and will, quicken and make it more severe anyway, right? So to just give you some ideas, this is what it looks like over the last year. You can see that's relatively stable, but over the next 6, 12, 18 months, we're sure to see a big increase. So here's the thing, guys. Most agents don't realize that there's approximately 900,000 BPOs requested nationwide every day. Now, there's a myriad of reasons that banks and servicers do this, but at the end of the day, that activity is out there. And at $45 per order, right, that's about the minimum. BPOs are a $40 million a day industry, which is pretty cool, right? So the opportunity gap for agents, the good news is you're on this call. You recognize that there's an opportunity there. We want to make sure today that you understand the challenges, but you're going to have to figure out how to fill in the gap. And the way that we do that is with education and resources, right? You got to learn to do it. And so all we're going to talk about today is, well, how does it work? What are the challenges? I'm going to be honest with you guys. We're going to be upfront. We'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. But we want you to understand everything is overcome with education and resources. Resources aren't just financial, right? So let's talk about some of the challenges. Number one, you have to understand that you're the eyes and ears of an asset manager who could be on the other side of the country. They're relying on you for expertise, and they're relying on you to be their eyes and ears. So you have to understand that they're looking for you to solve problems for them and give them solutions. Hey, here are 3 choices you could do, Mr. Business Asset Manager. So you got to understand you're their eyes and ears. You have to know what the banks score on. And we'll talk about that. Everything involved in the REO business, everybody's getting scored. Just like anything else that requires scoring, the better scores you have, the more you get. And so you got to understand that. Number 3, and probably to me, in my opinion, the most important, you have to stand out. There's lots of people who want to get into the REO space. So we're going to talk about what we do to stand out and get noticed by these asset managers, right? And then REO is like having a job, and the asset manager is your boss. Because when they call you up and say, hey, I need this done, they need it done. The truth is you really don't want to have them call you. Just do your job and do it right. Again, they're looking for solutions and problem solvers, not problems, right? But you have to understand when they call and they can control, if you're sitting on 10 or 15 listings right now, you want to make sure your boss is happy, right? And then how do you get the REO accounts, especially if you're newer at it? Then that's a challenge, right? And then you've got to have the financial resources to manage this. And we'll talk about that as we go through. And I don't want you to worry, even as you're sitting here now, don't worry about the financial resources. We can actually help show you how we and our agents offset that, right? So there's some common REO mistakes. What happens is you get involved in REO and you start focusing only on the REO listings. Well, remember, for us, this is one of 8 listing funnels. And if you focus only on REO, which can, let's be honest, it can be, captivating. But if you ignore the rest of your business, that's a huge mistake. Number 2, it's really not about the REO. It's about turning the REO into cash flow in closings. And so I'm going to walk through some of our marketing and how we get hundreds and hundreds of people to come into our open houses. And then, my gosh, if we actually added the word bank owned or foreclosure on some of the marketing that we do, our best open house is 586 people. I'd be willing to bet if we did that and added the word bank owned or foreclosure, we probably could get 1,000 people in. Well, those are all buyer opportunities that helps fund your real estate business. So we don't want to ignore it. Because the number one thing I see with like ultra successful REO agents is they give up their regular real estate marketing, their prospecting, and their lead funnels, which is what they can use to fund their REO business. Because the REO business is very lucrative. But don't walk away from the rest. We've seen a lot of people at 08, 9, 10 made a ton of money in REO, and then they forgot how to run a regular real estate business. So we focus on balance. We have 8 sources of listings that we target. REO is just one of those areas. So don't do that. When's the best time to get started? Well, the truth is, guys, it's right now. There's a learning curve. Well, if Larry's numbers are right, and because he's talking to all the hedge funds and the biggest hedge funds in the world, he communicates with on a daily basis, if it is 18 to 24 months, well, the good news for you, you have time to learn, to start to build expertise, right? Start your apprenticeship, if you will, and learn. But the best time's now. So there's 3 things you're going to need to answer, in my opinion, about REO. Number 1, where do you go to learn the REO business? That's a big one. Number 2, where do you start? And number 3, we're going to give you the opportunity to leverage our results, our experience, and our mentorship if you choose, right? It's up to you. So by and large, that's the fast way to learn, or you could learn the slow way. And so we're going to walk through all 3 of those options for you, okay? So let's get started. Well, where do you go to learn the REO business? Well, I see people that do sell some courses, and quite honestly, I don't know if they're worthwhile or not, to be quite honest, but I would tell you the first place you'd go to would be to go to Equator. Equator is a platform that most of the REO servicers, I won't say all, but most utilize. And so they have a certification course. If you ever hope to get assigned REO assets, you're going to need to know Equator. And you can go to their website. I don't remember if they charge for their certification or not, but even if they do, if you want to get into the REO business, you've got to do it. And it's a helpful tool. And once you get certified, that will help you get out in front of asset managers, right? You can go to Freddie Mac's training portal, which is VRMU, and you can get a Freddie Mac certification. Each one of these modules, and I don't remember how much, some of them were like $39, $49, whatever it was. There's a cost to doing it, but you can go there and get certified through Freddie Mac. So those are good places to go to start to learn. But the reality of it is it's a learning curve, and that's just a good, think of it like this. It's like going to real estate school. You got your license. Now what? Now what do you do? But those are two good places to start. Here's a couple of associations and some different products. So you can go to like Taza REO, excuse me, which is like a pipeline management system for REO brokers that manage their tasks. There's a lot of paperwork involved, right? You can go to reoinsider.com, dsnews.com. It's just a good source for the latest in default services market. And just know that like 5-star is DS News's default REO conference. There's lots of REO conferences that you can and should go to. And so DS News is a good place to go and learn about those. And then you can go to REOMAC also. So those are some good sources that you can go to start plugging yourself into where do you get that information, right? But here's the thing, guys. Your number one consideration, in my opinion, and I'm going to let all of our coaches share this in a minute, who are you going to go to get answers and advice, right? So here's the question. How much experience does your current broker have? Because ultimately, if you don't know the answer to something, you're going to have to go to somebody. Who is that somebody? Typically, I would tell you your broker, but how much experience do they have? Number two, are they willing to get the right E&O insurance for you? There's a different kind of E&O insurance when you work in REO. Are they willing to do it? It's a little bit more expensive. So is the broker willing to do it? Do you have agents in your office that are top REO agents, right? They could be a good resource, but I do have to caution you on, REO is a very tight community. Agents are very closed about what they do because it takes years to learn and establish contacts. The contacts like that Larry has, those are over more than a decade of working in that space. Agents in your own market, in your own office, are not really willing to share with you because, well, there's a finite number of listings available, and you, quite honestly, guys, you're their competition. So they're going to protect their contacts and their knowledge. They don't have any financial incentive to help you, and then you got to understand you're their competition. So at the end of the day, it's going to, by and large, be, does your broker have experience in this? And so you're going to want to find that out, because at the end of the day, guys, you're going to need to build and leverage a team or a network of coaches and mentors with vast experience. Every one of the folks that I'm going to introduce you to, you know, when they first started, they made plenty of mistakes, but they also had some mentors along the way to help them. And so this is kind of our way to pay back, you know, because you got to find people who are willing to open the vault and teach you everything and be there and be accessible for you, because you're going to have questions. And those questions, the asset managers don't want you calling them with. They're busy. They got lots and lots, you know, some of them have 200 properties they're managing. So you've got to have that network. So, well, what does that look like? You know, when we say that, what's that look like? Well, I'm going to introduce you to our power team of coaches and mentors. I'm not going to read you all of their accomplishments, but Robert's been doing this for 34 years. He's approved with over 44 bank and REO companies. He's trained over 35,000 agents for REO Mac. He scores a 1% with Freddie Mac, which is 5 is horrible, 1 is great. And he's closed over 3,500 REO transactions. Jeff's been doing it for 22 years. He's personally sold over 2,000 homes, trained over 25,000 agents. He's approved with 60 REO companies, including all the biggest one, and he completes over 750 big BPOs every year. Jerry was our broker of this. He worked for actually a hedge fund who created a real estate company. He managed their California division, or the state of California is the best way to say it. He managed and handled over 2,200 REO sales. He was a broker for over 3,000 REO agents, and he was the broker. He was the one they went to for questions, and he works closely with more than a dozen REO servicers and asset managers and trained over thousands of agents. Joseph been doing it for 15 years. He was a national trainer for the same company. You know, he personally lists and sells REOs, performed over 1,000 REOs. Larry, as he's talking on the phone, he just didn't send me his bullet points. Been doing this for 12 years. Primarily works with some of the biggest hedge funds in the United States. We also have access to some of those assets. James worked with Jerry, Larry, and Joseph at the same company, done hundreds and hundreds of REO assets, and Sharon Bartlett was a former director of Freddie Mac REO. These guys have decades and decades of experience, have sold tens of thousands of dollars of REO properties, and have all these contacts. Well, why is that important? Well, that's who we go to for answers and advice. Like, wouldn't it be great to have that? And guys, you can unmute yourself. Can we all agree that, well, I want you to understand that the REO business as we go through this today, hey, there's a lot of details, but I want you to understand you can make millions of dollars. Is that accurate, guys?
Absolutely.
Not just millions of dollars now, but also you can build your pipeline to have leads coming in indefinitely if you have the right CRM and follow-up systems in place.
Yeah. And hey, guys, their best years were like 08, 9, 10, 11. And so as a real estate agent, remember, we've got to balance our business. We have to be prepared for the good times, and we have to build it to be prepared for the bad times, right? So this is what we're going to do to talk about how do we prepare for the bad times, right? So where in the world do you start? What do you do? Well, first of all, you got to recognize that there's different types of REO sellers. We always think of banks, right? So typically in the real estate world, we just think it's banks. Well, it's more than that. They're certainly there, but then you have loan servicers, right? You're hearing more and more in today's news about loan servicers because they're actually the ones who set up forbearance agreements. And then there's asset management companies. They simply manage the assets for an investor. Then there are the investors, right? Both companies and private. So there's a whole series of REO out there that you have to understand. So we branch it, or we put it under the heading of REO, but there's a lot of different places to get that inventory from, right? But here's the good news for newer REO agents. There's actually good news. Several years ago, NAR went to Fannie and Freddie and said, hey, you know what? Typically, like back in 08, 9, 10, there were a handful of agents that got assigned things because they were good. They knew what they were doing. And we're going to talk about why that's important to an asset manager. But NAR started to force them to cap the number of assets that could be assigned to any one agent. So, for example, Robert or Jerry or Larry or Joseph, any of those guys, hey, at one point they could have had 50 listings with Freddie Mac. Well, now it's capped at 10 to 15, right? So each one has a little bit different. And their thought process was they didn't want to have it concentrated in one place. And so for a new agent, guess what? If Larry White or Jeff Russell or, James Cottrell is the best agent in his market, but he's got 10 or 15 assets, they're going to go out and look for other agents. And just so our coaches have asset managers come to them every day asking them to refer them to some solid REO experienced agents. So if you're a new agent, guess what? The days of having somebody to consolidate all the listings, that doesn't happen anymore. And then they also began limiting the distance that's allowed between a broker's office and an REO assignment to 15 miles, sometimes as little as 10 miles. I'd say that's more prevalent in California, mostly, guys, because the traffic is bad. Like if you're an agent and you're in California and you're, say, in the Inland Empire, well, LA in traffic is an hour and a half away. So what that does is that opens up, they need more agents now. They just can't send everything to like our guys that are experienced in this. They have to break it up. So that's an advantage for you to break into the REO business. So there's 5 things in our opinion that's important for you to do. Number 1 is create an REO resume, because it's different than a regular resume. You have to register with the banks and you have to start accepting BPOs, right? So we'll go through that separately. Then you're going to have to complete perfect BPOs, because BPOs are your foot in the door, if you will, to get listings. And so you can't do a BPO and mess it up all the time and think they're going to give you listings, right? Then your marketing must answer this question: why should they hire you versus every other agent that wants their listings? And guys, at the end of the day, the majority of the interest of the asset manager is based on the marketing. What are you going to do to sell my house fast, for top dollar, and I don't want any headaches? Your marketing is going to have to answer that question for them. And then finally, do you have the financial resources and cash flow that's needed? That's a side of the business very few people ever talk about. So we're going to go through that in great detail today, right? So let's start with your resume. Guys, your resume is basically where you're showing them the money. It's a marketing tool. It's got to be blended. And what does that mean? Well, you need to answer questions for them. Why should they give you the listings, and how do you stand out? So it's a different kind of resume than traditional, right? You still got to give them a little bit of that, but you've got to understand that these guys go through processes, right? So if you go to like Freddie Mac's page to register, what did they call it? Selection process. They didn't say, hey, we'll take anybody. Start the selection process. This is another service, or Dakota. It's a pre-qualification survey. You have to be able to, put into a synopsis what your business looks like and why they should hire you. So you need to understand your resume is what does that. So here's the basics of an REO resume. You need to have your gross sales volume and then the days on market. What your experience is, your REO experience and your training and your certification. That's where those certifications from like Fannie and Equator and that stuff comes in. Then you have to show them a marketing plan. And then you're going to have to talk about the REO services that you offer. And that's rekeying, trash out, initial clean, initial yard repairs, board ups, evictions. So you have to put those systems in place so that you have it. Because, well, guess what? You don't want to be the one doing rekeys and trash out and all that other stuff. So you have to have services available for that. And then you want to talk about the zip codes that you service. Because the one thing I'll tell you guys is you don't want to be driving an hour between properties. Now, some of them will limit you, some won't. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to take in a one-page synopsis, show them that, right? So this would be like your resume in applying for a job, let's say, the normal stuff. This would be a sample of what your REO resume would look like. It's got the sales volume, number of units, your percentage to say, your BPO accuracy, 97% to sales price, 100% repeat business, meaning all of my servicers give me multiple. My average days on the market is 22, right? So you've got to go through all of those things to be able to tell them why they want to hire you. Hey, what inventory management systems you have, Taza REO, QuickBooks, all the other things that there's there, right? That's what that would look like. So it's a different kind of resume than what you're thinking. Because what happens is the resume is what you use to start breaking into the banks. You start signing up for registries for banks. You sign up on registries for outsourcers, right? Or servicers. And then you start doing BPOs en masse. Notice I said en masse. And you leverage your expertise. The more BPOs you do, the more exposure you have. And the better job you do on those BPOs, the more likely you're going to have to get hired for listings. You guys agree with that one? All of our coaches on here?
100%, Bob.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's where you start, guys. You start with the BPOs. And we're going to talk about them, so don't worry. And then you start building relationships. And here's the thing, guys. This is a business. It's about relationships. We're going to talk about what's important to the asset manager and why they value those relationships so much. But you also have to realize some of those relationships, you may never talk to them on the phone. You may never meet with them at a conference. Jeff was telling us a story the other day. He's got one asset manager he's worked with for 18 years, never spoken to him on the phone, never met him at a conference. Everything was done via email. But it's about relationships and trust. If they trust you, you're going to get more business, right? So let's talk about BPOs. Well, it all starts with BPOs. They're assigned, and there's different kinds or different purposes for doing it, right? It's not always about necessarily, getting the listing, so you certainly get your notice of default where you're going into foreclosure, but they could do it because they're negotiating a short sale, or maybe they're going to get rid of the PMI, or maybe they are looking for the REO listing assignments, or maybe they're looking for a second opinion or a backup. And so the amount that they're willing to pay is somewhere between $45 and $75 per BPO. Depends if they want an exterior BPO or an interior BPO. But just know this, folks, the quality of your BPO equals your foot in the door. If they keep having to dispute with you, or you make mistakes and things like that, or you're sloppy, they're probably not going to hire you for listings. So it all starts here. Now, I want to give you an idea what this looks like. This is the Fannie Mae form. If you notice, it looks very similar to an appraisal. Don't be intimidated by the form. It's just asking you to do what you would do pretty much in a normal listing presentation. Give me your CMA. They just make it look more formal. So there's details to it, and there's ways to do it, but don't get intimidated by the form. Some of the vendors, or most of the vendors, have their own form. And the layout might be a little bit different, but it's all asking for the same thing. The thing that you need to understand is just like you would in a listing presentation, you have to do a great CMA. Because remember, they want these properties sold. Is it a depressed market, declining? Are prices decreasing? Are they increasing? Because remember, you're the eyes and ears. You're the local pro for the guy or gal who might be on the other side of the country. And then maintaining your BPO price to sales price is critical, right? Like, so Robert's in his resume was 97%. Well, technically that's a great one. Gosh, guys, what if you could have 102, 103, 104%? And so we're going to talk about our marketing and how that helps us do that. But don't be intimidated by it. It just, many of these vendors, most of the vendors have their own forms, but they're all asking for the same thing. So don't freak out. Just looks a little different, right? You just build a library of that. Like Jeff was telling us the other day, he's got a book of 28 different REO vendors that he works with, and he just has all their forms. So it's not intimidating to him, right? But here's the important thing to understand, guys. You only get one shot at that stuff, so don't mess it up. If you send them the wrong information, or we've seen where agents sent the wrong form to the wrong company, somebody else's form to the different company, this is your audition, if you will, for a job to start taking the listings. Don't mess it up. Be careful. Hey, you might be doing quite a few BPOs. Slow down, take a breath, and don't rush it. Get your information right, okay? So the reason that that's so critical that you understand, both you as the agent and the asset manager, well, you're being scored on that process. Everyone in the process is scored on both time and performance. So for you, it's about how long did you take to accept the BPO? How long did it take you? How accurate were you? Did you actually complete it? The BPO is the opportunity for you to display the quality of your work. It's your audition. Well, the thing is, though, guys, you have to understand the asset manager is also being scored. One of the biggest things they get scored on is how much return did they get on that asset. It can cost them, well, it can in a serious scenario, cost them their job. But it's more likely that what it does is it costs them bonus money. The higher price you get for their asset, they get a bonus on it. So if you can deliver a great marketing plan that you can deliver a higher price than what the other agents could deliver, those asset managers are going to love you because they get bonuses on it. And so you have to understand they're very careful about what agents they work with because, well, you can cost them money or their jobs. You just need to understand that. The good news is if you're good at your job, oh my goodness, can you kick butt? So I'm going to kind of walk through what we do for marketing and we'll give you an idea of that, right? So there's two kinds of BPOs. There's a freebie, or we refer to as freebies. They're just free, meaning you don't get paid. And then there's fee, meaning you do get paid, right? But do they really result in getting the listing? So Robert, I know you and I have talked about it. Kind of just walk people through why they would do BPOs for free, and then why would you do it for a fee?
Sure, Bob. The free BPOs are typically coming directly from an asset manager where they have a property that they're taking back. They want to get an idea of what the investor is looking for in terms of value. So they're going to reach out to their approved vendor list, the agents, and say, can you run out there and do this BPO? I need it in this time. I need it on this form. And typically what that does, that results in, if the bank does take the property back, you end up getting that listing because you went out there and did the BPO. That's usually the freebie BPOs or the free BPOs. They call them no fee BPOs. Then you have the fee BPOs, where basically are the ones that, are BPO mills, where there could be many different reasons why they're sending out an evaluation. Sometimes, like you mentioned a couple slides before, they mentioned about, sure, there could be an REO assignment attached, but it could be PMI removal. It could be, a short sale. It could be many different things. That, in my opinion, Bob, that's a great way. I do both personally. Always do a free BPO for my banks, but the fee BPO pays me to get in the system and get in the market and really understand it. So I look at it as a paid internship. So it's a lot of those do get sent to the asset manager.
And guys, it's for those, it's extra cash flow. I know Jeff was telling us the other day, he's not on here today. He was on yesterday, but he was telling me last year he made $39,000 in fee-based BPOs. That's not a bad little side, gig of doing your business. Jeff is obviously very experienced, but if you're a new agent and you could make $30,000-$40,000 to learn the business. That's a great way to do it, right? So this kind of gives you an idea of what the REO and BPO income opportunities are. You obviously get paid for the BPO like we talked about. Your REO listings are 2 to 2.5% commissions in general. Average closing time, 30 to 45 days. Obviously, that's market sensitive. But here's the best news of REOs, guys. They all have to close. You're going to sell the thing because the banks want it off their books. The good news is if you do this properly, you can double end about 60% of your REOs. And the other thing now, it's getting very common to see the agents at open houses like, hey, do you want me to get you a list of off-market properties? Well, those are FSBOs, guys. If you're doing the BPO for the lender and you know that this is coming out in 21 days, you literally have a list of coming soon properties, if you will. Off-market properties that you know are hitting the market. You think that would help you convert more leads from all your other prospecting and marketing? And the other thing, guys, because you're an REO, right? So kind of the saying back in 08, 09, hey, if Bank of America trusts me to sell their assets, shouldn't you? In a traditional listing appointment, hey, here's all of the banks that trust me to liquidate their assets. I sell properties. Gives you huge credibility. And then REO leads to short sale listings on top of it. And then the more expertise you have, the more REO asset managers that you're going to get referred to. Because, again, it's a very tight community. So here's some important REO, BPO, and listing sites. Like, where do you start with this? So you can go to ResNet. You can go to Equator, we talked about, right? You go to REOnetwork.com, REOconnection.com. That's a good place to go and start doing that, right? But again, at Equator, you're going to want to get certified in that because you're going to need to know their systems, right? So that's a good place to start off at. You know, there's literally hundreds of those companies, but we don't want to overwhelm people. And just here's a good starting point, okay? Where do you go to kind of find out where these asset managers are? Like, think of it as farming sites. Well, you go to foreclosure.com, foreclosureradar.com. Realty Track is another great resource for all kinds of data and statistics on REO and what's coming up. But guess what? As you do articles, you're going to find different asset managers, Lane Guide, and then believe it or not, guys, your title companies. Because, well, they can go in and search where there's NODs been filed, again, depending on your state and how long it takes and all that. Well, on those NODs, the asset managers are filed. So it's not unbearably hard. It just takes a little bit of time and research. Now, if you have access to all that up front, it's a lot easier anyway, right? What I want you to know is if you're watching this right now and you go, hey, REO is overwhelming. Guys, it could be if you're brand new at it, but if you try it on your own, it's overwhelming. If you have a support staff that can be there, if you fell, that you could pick up a phone or go into an office and ask a question, it's not overwhelming. Think of it as it's your internship. And again, if we're 18 to 24 months away or 12 to 24 months away, hey, you got time to become an intern, if you will. You just need that support staff. So don't worry about it. It's just overwhelming if you just don't have that support system. So your marketing. This is probably the area that most agents don't focus on or ignore, if you will, because they think what's important is the paperwork. And trust me, it is. But what the asset manager is looking for is somebody that can sell my house fast, top dollar, and no headaches. This stuff, well, I'm going to give you good service. It just doesn't cut it. Or this. Guys, this is not what an asset manager is looking for. So you've got to give them proof, not promises, right? You can't sit there and say, well, here, this is what I do. They're going to go, well, really? Prove it. So let me give you an example of what that looks like. This is one of Robert's open houses and how he does it. He tends to video almost all of them. Sometimes he has too many to do. But what he's done is he's taken and videotaped these so that he has these videos that he can send and show the traffic that he can drive to their house. And so he's able to verify and demonstrate that his marketing assures the asset manager gets the highest price. Because if you can't get them the highest price over long term, they're not going to send you assets. But he's got a proven, demonstrable way to show the power of his marketing. He's got a video where he had 568 people into his open house. What will you do to compete with that? That's the question you're going to have to answer. But remember, this is what asset managers really are looking for. This another one of our agents, 300 people in a day into an open house. Well, when you start seeing that on video, you think that gets the asset manager's attention. Same agent, he actually sold 2 properties in 1 week. He had 325 people in a week, sold it for $15,000 more than what the seller wanted. Here's the good news. He had 9 agents working that open house that weekend to handle 325 people. That's what we mean by don't ignore your existing business to generate that. Because all those agents are paying a 30% referral fee to the listing agent. Well, that helps cash flow, right? Then this is one of Joseph's. Joseph, I think, is on here today. This is something he did a little bit different. Joseph, you're here, right? I think he is. Maybe not. So I'll just tell the story. This is one of his listings that he did following our marketing strategy. They had about 140 people through, if I remember right. They had 19 people that got pre-approved for a loan. That this happened right before this whole shutdown. So eventually they'll sell them houses, right? And he got 6 more listing appointments from the open house, 25 transactions. This is what we mean, folks, by monetizing your existing listings. And so let's say that he only closes 25% of that. That's 5 deals in his market. Let's call it 100 or 500,000. That's a $15,000 commission. That's a $75,000 plus he sold this house, another 15. So that's a $90,000 weekend. That's what we mean by don't ignore your other assets. This was not an REO asset, but it's going to generate at least $90,000 in revenue for him. Well, that helps him fund his REO business, right? So what you've got to understand is, yeah, all the paperwork and everything and all the details critical, but what the asset manager is really looking for, because that's how they get bonused. They're actually looking for the marketers that can sell our assets for top dollars fast, and they don't want any headache. Is that really any different than any other seller, guys? It's not. Guys, is that an accurate statement that they really want the marketers? Like, they expect you to do your paperwork right, don't get me wrong, but they want the marketers.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, you've got to be able to demonstrate that, right? Well, here's the cool part. REO servicers understand and utilize auctions. So if you go to auction.com, Hubzu, they're all pre-foreclosure or foreclosure properties. So they get it. Xome is actually the 3rd largest REO servicer in the United States. They list their properties by auctions. Oh, they'll sell them in other ways. So we just said collectively, well, what if we just create our own auction platforms that we can go to the REO servicers and demonstrate how we utilize that to get them top dollar? And we get them done fast. So that what we do, it's 14 days, top dollar. They have the right to accept or reject or negotiate any offer. But at the end of the day, guys, there's a couple things that we need to understand. All marketing is psychology, right? Well, the words auction and bank owned are all associated with a deal. And every buyer is looking for a deal. So could you imagine, like, Robert, how many people you think that open house that you did with 586 people, if that was a bank owned and an auction open house, how many people could you've gotten in with that then?
Well, you know what? That would have been definitely a game changer, because a lot of the folks came there looking for a deal. That's usually what the auction stands for. But when you add bank owned to that, I would almost bet that we'd almost double those numbers.
And so could you imagine that, guys? The truth is, I can't even imagine that. As much as I know, and I've been to Robert's open houses, like, I can't imagine the number of people. But that's the way it is. So think of that now. If we manage that process properly, and still, let's just say you had 500 people come in, because he had more than that. And I forget what you had, 80 people that got pre-approved or whatever it is. Guys, again, if 10% of those closed, the money that you make from the open houses from that supports your cash flow. We're going to give you a little bit different system. We're going to show you how we structure our REO teams or our listing teams to do that. But could you imagine if you did those two things together? And now you can guarantee that the asset manager, I can get this done in 14 days. I'll get you top dollar. If we don't, you can accept, reject, or negotiate it. That's pretty cool, right? Well, why are auctions such a big deal? Because they utilize the science of pricing. Think of it this way. if we had a house that the asset manager wanted 300, we posted it for 240, and we did all of our marketing plan, right? So we have all this in documentation for them, is all driven or geared towards driving traffic to a 2-day open house. And we have videos and pictures of all these open houses that we've done. Guys, as an agent, let me ask you this. Would you rather have a Facebook or a Zillow lead, right, that you got to drip on for 24 months, 18 to 24 months? Or would you rather be face-to-face with hundreds of people? Now you can monetize these open houses, plus you can demonstrate to the REO servicer how it works. Now, I'm not doing a class on this today. If you have an interest in doing that, just get with the person who invited you to this call, and you can come and watch one of the auction classes and how we do that. What we want to show you with this, though, is that we have a demonstrable way to show and prove to an asset manager that our marketing rocks. Fair enough? What we're doing is we're trying to build a nationwide network of agents for the REO servicers that use the same platforms as us, that we've trained, that have us as a backstop. And when we do, we can refer that business out. That's the purpose of our call today, right? Well, now do you have the financial resources and cash flow that's needed? One of the things I want you to understand, most people don't talk about this on the REO. Well, the expenses with the property are borne by the agent. So for example, if you have to evict somebody and you have to make them a cash for keys offer, that money's coming from you. Now the company will reimburse you, or the asset manager will reimburse you, but you need to understand there's a cash flow issue there, right? Then you also have to understand how to evict people. You don't want to mess that up. But to the untrained REO agent, they go, well, wait, I've never heard this before. You mean I have to do evictions? I have to pay for like utilities and landscaping, and I turn utilities on in my name? Yes. You pay for the landscaping? Yes. What do you mean they put cement in the toilet? Guys, how many times has that happened to you where you had cement in the toilet because they're mad at the bank because they're foreclosing?
It happens. It happens.
And guess what, guys? You have it paid. Now, typically, we did a Q&A, and if you're interested in getting that Q&A I did with, all of our coaches the other day, the consensus was that you need about $3,000 liquid per property that you have in assets. Well, that's cash flow that you have to understand. Now, you do get reimbursed. You're just floating it. The one thing that I'm going to tell you, though, is you better know how to do the paperwork, and you better be aware of what their timelines are. Because if you miss their timelines, they don't pay you. That's where Jerry comes in. Hey, he managed that whole process for an REO asset company with thousands of agents to make sure that their company got reimbursed. Surprisingly, Jerry's not an alcoholic. I don't know how he did it. Right, Jerry? But the cool part is he had people that was kind of the apprenticeship. He brought them in and he started teaching them how to handle that for his listing agents. And we put them through a career process, if you will, an internship, for lack of better words, an apprenticeship. Well, hey, you learn how to handle this first, because if you mess up your money, that's not good. And then you start going out and doing BPOs and things like that. So there's actually a way to do this in an intelligent manner, right? There's vendor management portals, and each servicer has their own portal and time frames. But here's what's critical to each one of them, guys. They need to be on time. Whatever their deadlines are, 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, you need to know that. My recommendation is create an Excel spreadsheet of this vendor, what their guidelines are, and put it on there, right? You need to have the right format, because guess what? Each one has different format. So kind of like Jeff did, he printed it all out. He has a book for each servicer, and he has all those guidelines in that. So if he's got a property for this, there's no mistake. You got to understand there's 0 errors allowed. They just reject it. And if you miss your timeline, you just need to understand you're not getting reimbursed. So that's why it's so critical, and that's a good way to start is, hey, handle the paperwork. Once you know how to get paid, well, then you don't have to worry about it. But just know that you don't get to miss their deadlines. So that's all it is. If you miss the deadlines, generally you're going to eat it. They don't come back and go, oh, Larry, it was okay. Oh, Jerry, it was okay. Don't worry about it. Not how it works. Jeff was actually telling us the other day, he actually had one of the servicers Jeff had to break the window to get in because he didn't do his thing in time when he first started an REO. They actually billed him for the broken window, took the listing away and billed him for the broken window. So it's not good or bad, guys. You just have to understand it. We want to talk to you today and be upfront with you and say, hey, this is what's involved. That's why that backup is so important. You're going to need to prepare a business statement, a financial statement. They want to know, do you have the cash flow to do it? That's all. So it's like your resume. Hey, I have the capacity to do it. But here's kind of like the guideline that we would give you, how you position yourself and like what you should be doing every day. Number one, get your REO resume with your service areas. Typically stick within 15 miles, right? Learn how to do just rock star BPOs. Don't make any mistakes on them, right? Practice them. My recommendation is whoever your mentor is on that, you do it and then you have them look at it. You register on all the BPO REO portals that we kind of went through before. You get a comprehensive written marketing plan. If you have videos like Robert does, you put your YouTube links to it and things like that, right? You give them everything they need to know to make a great decision. Then you start prospecting just like you would a FSBO, an expired, the rest of them. You start talking to them, right? You attend every REO conference that you can, and you make great impressions. Guys, this isn't where you go in shorts and flip-flops. These are people that manage sometimes billions of dollars of assets. They want to work with pros, right? So make a great impression. Have your resume with you. Have your marketing plan with you. All those kinds of things, right? Your REO scorecards, they need to be stellar. That BPO to closed price is critical. That's why for us, the way that we market the properties and we get all these people into them, we can get our price, our BPO to close price of 101, 102, 103. Guys, that'll get every REO asset manager's attention in a heartbeat. They'll salivate to do that because guess what? They get bonuses based on that additional revenue or the additional ROI, right? And then you got to align yourself with someone who can help you break into REO. You're going to need the mentorship, right? And then understand this, guys, our job is to bring solutions to asset managers, not problems. You don't get to call them every day. They're not going to, most of the time, they're not going to pick up their phone anyway. They're relying on you to solve problems, not bring them problems. Imagine if you had 200 listings and you were trying to manage that on your own. So think of it that way. That's what a lot of these asset managers, they typically have between 100 and 200 listings at one time, and they don't have assistants and stuff. They have to manage it. So bring them solutions. And the best thing you can do is sell their house fast and don't even need to talk to them. Just get them high dollar. So that's really what's critical for you, right? But many of you on the call right now probably are going, well, I'm a little bit concerned about that cash flow solution, cash flow thing, because that can be an issue, right? So let's talk about that. So again, for us, we want to take and focus our agents on a balanced approach to the business. Now, Jeff, it sounds like you're back on here. The other day when we did a Q&A with Jeff, he said his business right now is about 20% REO, 80% listings, just normal stuff. FSBOs, expireds, all that. Eventually, 12 to 24 months from now, that might go 50-50. It could go 40% other things and 60% REO. But he's smart enough to always have a balance in there. So again, REO is just one thing to focus on. So our agents, we still teach them, put systems in place so that they're targeting their database, FSBOs, expireds, investors, divorce, probate attorneys to maintain listings, because here's what we do. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for listing agents that are coachable and trainable, that not only to learn the REO business, to become very skilled at getting listings. And when you do open houses the way we do them, you have to hire a team, period. When you have 586 people in an open house, Robert, how many agents did you have working that open house that day? I know it wasn't enough.
I usually recommend anywhere between 3 and 5, depending on how big the home is.
And then when you have 586, I think we had 9 that weekend and we were inundated. And I think 3 lenders were there because all of our people have to get pre-approved in order to submit offers on our houses. So we have to hire a team. And the way that we structure it, you can do whatever you want. And I'm using a low price in here because I know we got people from all over the country on. If your average purchase price was $250, We have them pay the listing agent a 30% referral fee. When we do open houses like that, if they can't close 2 deals a month, we'll go find another agent who will. So if you're the listing agent, you're going to get about $4,500 a month in referral fees before whatever you pay your broker. Well, if you got 10 open house buyers agents, that's $45,000 a month. Can you support some cash flow on that? And remember, you got more than just REO listings. Then what if we actually got your brokerage to pay you another, call it $2,400 a month, $28,000 a year on this kind of team setup? And then don't forget, you're going to close some of these listings. So let's say all you did was 4 of them. So there's about $30,000 a month in closings on that. Well, guys, this is about $77,000 a month. For all my coaches, can they support REO with $77,000 a month in cash flow?
Without a doubt.
Yes.
So here's the thing, folks. Will you do that? That I don't know. I know you can, but will you? And that's the key. But now you have a solution to that. And by gosh, I'd be honest with you, you probably had a pretty good business. Because now let's say you had another 10 or 15 REO assets on top of these listings. That's how these guys made millions of dollars. They didn't give up their other business. They kept focusing, and then they used the cash flow to fund the other. What if we could get your broker to fund your cash flow? That'd be cool, right? So remember, guys, this is only overwhelming if you try it on your own. So let's talk about how would you be able to leverage our results, our experience, and our mentorship? Well, there's a fast way or a slow way. Full disclosure, guys, I told you we didn't want your money. We're looking for agents. We're looking for coachable agents to partner with us on a local and a national level. When Jeff gets a call in Orange County, California, he's only going to get a listing within 15 miles. Well, guess what? LA is more than 15 miles from him. He's got to have an agent to refer it to. Now we need it on a national level. Because asset managers are contacting every one of our coaches on a weekly basis, asking to refer them to a solid, experienced REO agent. They don't call them up and say, hey, Larry, send me a newbie. They're very hard for these asset managers to find. And again, because our coaches are assets for these asset managers, they're their eyes and ears on the ground. Guys, who can you send me? Well, we want to send it on our own. Well, now guess what? Instead of trying to take your own resume and not have any numbers, well, you could take and now say our REO team. You could take all of our coaches and take and blend that together and say, hey, I'm part of an REO team, 11 top tier REO agents in the United States. And this is what we do. Whoa, suddenly you went from becoming a new agent to an REO pro because, well, you're leveraging our experience. You're going to get more business. Then you get access to our REO coaches and mentors. We don't charge anything for that, guys. So here's how it works. We have a virtual office. Every week, each one of these folks are in the virtual office for 2 hours. When you have questions or you're not sure about something, you don't have to call an asset manager. You can go in and ask these guys so that you can get the information and never have to ask a question to the asset manager because they don't want you to ask questions. You have our coaches and mentors to do that. By the way, you want to know how much they charge you to do this? Nothing. So what's next? Well, it's pretty simple, guys. If you want to talk about how we could work together, it's pretty simple. Go to Josh's Calendly link, calendly.com/Josh-Schoenly. Schedule a time to talk to him. He'll kind of do an interview, right? We want to make sure we've got the right agents and see if all this makes sense for you. Complicated, right? So any questions that I can answer? How do we do on time? 1 hour and 1 minute. That's pretty good. Any questions? I think Paul was probably answering questions as we went along, but any questions that I can answer for you guys? I'm going to leave this up on the screen. So grab the Calendly link, schedule a 10-minute call. It's not going to be real long. We're going to take and make sure that you're the right agent for us, and you're going to have to do the same thing. But if you think that that would be a great way to learn the REO business, to be able to have that kind of backstop behind you, to be able to leverage that kind of experience, then all you got to do is reach out to Josh. All right, I see hands are being raised. Do you guys have questions? Oh, I see one in there. Are you only looking to work with EXP agents or open to other brokerages? Well, why would we want to help you do anything else other than that? So if that's not something you're open to, don't schedule a call. We're here to take and help tie agents into this to take and make them wealthy. I can tell you every one of our coaches on this call, their net worth goes up about 100, call it 85 to 150,000 to be conservative in 2 months, every month, because of the systems we put in place. In Delaware, BPOs are illegal unless done in pursuit of a listing. Would your program be considered in pursuit of a listing? You know what? We'd have to look at what Delaware says. Going after BPOs is not illegal. Of course, we're going after a listing. That's why you do the BPOs, guys. I mean, the cash flow, if you're doing the paid ones, is good, or can be good anyway. But at the end of the day, yeah, that's the reason we're doing all this, is to go after a listing. So it always is amazing to me how state governments come up with like crazy things like that. How could a BPO be illegal? That's how a vendor needs to acquire the price. So yeah, everything we do is always in pursuit of a listing. I mean, listen, would you rather get $45 to $75 for a BPO or a $200,000-$300,000 asset that, you know, getting your paid 2.5%, be able to do an open house and get a bunch of people in there? Of course I want the listing. Other questions? So lots of people are raising their hands, so I assume you have questions. Just punch it into the chat box or the Q&A, either one. Let me open up both. I'm a new agent, 1 year to be exact. I'm also an REO property preservation contractor. Would be a conflict of interest or an advantage? I'd have to know maybe a little bit more, Eulanis, about what you do. Any, Larry, Jeff, Jerry, any of that?
I can answer that, Bob.
Go ahead.
I can answer that. I know that it all depends on the bank. There are some banks that allow the REO agent to also own and operate a preservation company, and some banks won't allow it, and they will call it a conflict of interest. It all depends on the asset management company.
See, that's why these guys are so smart. So other questions? You're welcome. So if you want to chat with us and have that, I've left Josh's Calendly link up there, and see if it's right for you. You're not under any obligation to do anything, folks. So it's free to talk to him. No obligation. Andrew, you don't have to do anything. See if it makes sense for you. Here's what I can tell you. I have 198 referral fees coming this month to you. You might want to talk to us. Can you imagine in this market having 198 referral fees paid on April 22nd? Can you imagine that? You can't, because you don't have it available to you. So you might want to chat with us. How much business do you currently have in New Jersey, Burlington, Camden? You know what, folks, Eulanis, if we don't target or we don't have an agent there, we're not going after it. You know, for example, Jeff and Robert are in California. They're not pursuing New Jersey business. Doesn't mean asset managers don't call them for a referral, but we're not pursuing business there. That's why we're doing this. We want to take and expand our footprint across the United States so that we do have agents that we can teach how to do that. That's the purpose of the call. Full disclosure, guys. Hang on, let me go to the Q&A ones. Or is that the Q&A? If we entered Zoom late, can you email it to me? I'm not sure what you mean by that. What are the other types of business presentation webinars you do? Our next one will be on auctions and how we do that. If you're interested in that, again, schedule a time with Josh. He'll get you an email, or he'll just get you an email to the next one. Hey guys, if you want to ask, do we stay affiliated with our current brokerage, right? No. Why would we help somebody else build a different brokerage? Why would all of my coaches work with you for free? They're not taking a split from you. So what I would tell you guys, if you have those questions, I want to answer them for you, but do it by scheduling a call. and then chat with Josh about what's involved in it. Then you can make an intelligent decision. Whatever you decide, we're good with. What are the types of business? I noticed it mentioned divorce and probate attorneys. Those are targets of what we do for listings. For example, I actually have a call at noon today, so after this, with a nationwide law firm that does all probate. It's elder care. So when people have to go into homes and they have to liquidate assets, and they want to use our auction platform to be able to do that. Gosh, would you want to be a part of that? Let me go back to the other one. If we entered late, the presentation. We are recording this, Al. Hopefully the recording comes out. Every once in a while we get glitches. So, we'll have a recording of it, schedule a time with Josh, and he can get that to you. Other questions? Would having a broker's license be an advantage? It doesn't matter, but it does sound better on an REO resume. So I would say that it doesn't matter to us if you have that broker license or not, but it would to an REO manager. So listen, anything that builds credibility for you in the marketplace, a broker's license builds credibility. You obviously have more experience, more knowledge, all that other stuff. So yeah, definitely. I meant for your growth. That would be all up to you, Michael. But we're there to help you grow those teams. And we have systems in place to be able to do that. Here's what I tell you, folks. If you're a business savvy agent and you want to turn your business from a real estate job, meaning you're going from a closing to closing to closing without having the cash flow to do that, and you want a real estate business that provides income to you even in a market like this, would you imagine 198 referral fees in a month in a market like this? If that's the kind of business you want, you're going to want to schedule a call with Josh. If it's not, that's okay. We're looking for people who are looking for us, is the best way I can say it. Coaches, any comments from you guys? I'll keep taking the questions.
You know what I'd like to add, Bob? This is Robert. What I'd like to add is by getting involved and getting involved in this REO business before, Larry talked about 18 to 24 months. Here's what happens. A lot of times agents will come to me once they'll show them one of my REO listings. They'll come to me and say, how do I get into the business? I said, well, it takes time. It takes time. You got to do BPOs for people like you mentioned in your presentation. You need to prove yourself. So if you ask to get into REO when REO is here, it's like jumping on a moving train. It's very difficult. So it's very important to get positioned, get ready, because that market always comes back. So it's whether it be 18 or 24 months, get positioned now, get doing those BPOs and become an expert in your market and be prepared.
So when we say now is the time, now is the time. It lets you get those kinks out of your system, if you will. So when the tsunami, and I don't know that I'd quite call it that, but we think it's going to be pretty substantial. Well, you're in a good position. That's why that title of it, how to position yourself to win listings, because you are in competition for every other REO agent. But you got to position yourself. The way that you do that is to get knowledgeable now, go through and get the kinks out and figure out your systems. I mean, wouldn't you guys love to have access to Jeff, who's got books on 28 different vendors and what their time frames are? That's the fast way to learn, but it's up to you. So any other questions? I've left Josh's Calendly link up there for quite a bit. So feel free to schedule a call with him and get your questions answered. Guys, you're not under any obligation to do anything, but if you want to look at a different way to take and change your business and turn it into a business that generates cash flow without you having to work your butt off every day, or in markets like this, right? I guarantee 99% of the real estate agents are scared to death about what's going to happen after we open up and all this happens. Well, if you had this as a backstop, you wouldn't worry, would you? You're welcome, Andrew. But your call. That's why we do the class. It's your call what you decide to do. All right, looks like that's all the questions. So guys, thanks so much. Again, feel free to reach out to Josh. It's 10, 15 minutes and have a little bit of chat. Let's find out if this is right for you, if you'd be right for us. And if it is, great. If it isn't, great. Nothing lost, right? At the end of the day, though, hopefully we delivered a lot of information that you could take and utilize to start trying to do this on your own. That was our goal. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you taking the time, hour and 12 minutes. So that was pretty good. And again, I'll leave that up 1 more minute. And Josh put it in the chat box, so you've got access to it. Go ahead, reach out, schedule a call. And guys, we'll talk to you from there. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter to all, and we'll talk to you soon.